committee members?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yes, I would. I would like to give a very heartfelt thank you to our committee members that included Dr. Octavia Amici, Dr. Maria Favreau, Dr. David Weitzman, as well as trustees Dr. Cleve Ham, Dr. Stephanie Putnam, and Dr. Dean Page with their wisdom and guidance, as well as soon to be Dr. Bryce Smoker, medical student from the University of South Carolina in Columbia. We did have a wonderful discussion, and it was actually a great experience. So I want to thank them all for everything that the time and effort they put into this.
Thank you. Okay, now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Cashman for the ever exciting D.
Thank you, Dr. Stockinger. So we will have Dr. Melinda Moretz come up to give her report for Reference Committee D. And while we are working on that, I want to address, Dr. Wilson made a comment, I appreciate him making a comment, that as a reminder, when resolutions are passed, the only thing that stays on the books for the SCMA policy is the resolved clause. So the whereases do not stay on the books, although they can be a very important point of information. So as a point of clarification, it is only the resolved clause. And I believe Dr. Moretz is here.
Hello, can y'all hear me?
We can. Good morning, Dr. Moretz.
Good morning. Can you see me?
We cannot see you.
No.
I cannot see me either. Oh, okay. Well, there's the problem. Okay, now you can see me. Okay, yay. All right, so for Reference Committee D, first of all, I wanted to apologize because we had a glitchy start. And so I appreciate my committee and particularly Dr. Campion, my assistant, who was invaluable. And also to Drs. Ropp and Yako and Teresitas for their procedural guidance. I appreciate it very much. So the Reference Committee D on Legislative Activities and Public Relations gave careful consideration to the items referred to it and submits the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Reference Committee recommends that as a consent calendar, reports D2, report of the Interspecialty Council for Legislative Activities, and D3, report of the South Carolina MedPAC Political Action Committee of South Carolina Medical Association be adopted as submitted.
Thank you, Dr. Moretz. The question is for these reports to be committed, and the recommendation is for us to adopt as submitted. We will now move to a vote. Or any discussion first, and we'll move to the vote. Seeing no discussion, you may vote.
I gotta pay attention.
Great. So these reports have been adopted. You may proceed.
Mr. Speaker, the Reference Committee recommends that report D4, report of the D 2016 Sunset Policy Resolutions be adopted as submitted.
Thank you, Dr. Moretz. So as everyone can see, a longer list of sunset policies. We did have discussion in the reference committees over each one of these. We will open it up to any discussion, open the floor to any discussion on any of these sunset policies. Seeing none, we will open it up to voting. All right, the yeas have it, so we have accepted the report D4. You may proceed, Dr. Moretz.
Mr. Speaker, with regards to Resolution D5, efforts to increase graduate medical education positions, funding, and accountability within South Carolina, your Reference Committee has separate recommendations as to the separate resolve clauses. First of all, your Reference Committee recommends that the first resolve clause be rejected, and that is because that was covered in a previous resolution in 2016, reference number D13.
Thank you. So the reference committee is recommending the first resolved clause be rejected. Is there any discussion on the first resolved clause? And thank you for the explanation. Seeing none, we'll open up voting on the first resolved clause for Resolution D5. As a reminder, the yay vote is to reject as recommended by the committee. Thank you. So that has passed as a yay or rejected with the yay votes. You may proceed.
Mr. Speaker, Reference Committee recommends that the second clause of this resolution be adopted as submitted.
Thank you. So we will open up to any discussion on the second clause of Resolution D5. Seeing none, we will open up to vote for the second clause for the Resolution D5 to be adopted as submitted. Great, and that passes. You may proceed.
On resolution number D6, Mr. Speaker, your reference committee recommends that resolution D6, expanding broadband internet access and telehealth infrastructure, be amended to read, resolve that the SCMA supports the expansion of affordable broadband and high-speed internet access, especially in rural, at-risk, and under-resourced areas, and for the use of telehealth to reduce health disparities and promote equitable access to health care. Mr. Speaker, your reference committee recommends that this resolution be adopted as amended.
Thank you. So the recommendation is that we adopt as amended Resolution D5. We'll open up to any discussion. Sorry, D6. Forgive me, D6. Any discussion on D6? Having seen none, we will open up to voting for D6 to be adopted as amended. Okay, and that passes. Dr. Moretz, you may proceed.
On resolution D7, Mr. Speaker, your reference committee recommends that resolution D7, opposing life insurance denial based on underwriting for naloxone obtained via prescription or standing order, be amended to read, resolve that our SCMA recommends against insurance companies issuing any underwriting decision that would deny or limit coverage or increase the charge for such coverage in any way based on prior or current attainment of an opioid antagonist via prescription or standing order. Mr. Speaker, your reference committee recommends this resolution be adopted as amended.
Thank you. So the question on the floor is for reference committee or resolution D7. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll open up the voting for resolution D7 to be adopted as amended. And that passes. Dr. Moretz, you may proceed.
On resolution D8, Mr. Speaker, your reference committee recommends that resolution D8, protection of peer review process, be adopted as submitted.
Thank you. So the recommendation is that we adopt D8 as submitted. We will open up to any discussion. Seeing none, we will move to the vote for D8 to be adopted as submitted. And D8 passes. Dr. Moretz, you may proceed.
Resolution D9, Mr. Speaker, your reference committee recommends that Resolution D9, protect the rights of conscience of healthcare providers in the state of South Carolina, be adopted as submitted.
Thank you. So the question on the floor is for Resolution D9 to be adopted as submitted. We'll open up to any discussion.
Mr. Speaker, Dr. Ryan Garbalosi wishes to speak.
Thank you. Dr. Garbalosa, you may have the floor.
How do I hit?
Please stating that your name and who you're representing.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. Remember, it takes just a minute to become active. You'll see the little spinny thing going around, and then you should be able to speak.
He's on. I don't think, there he is.
Oh, there he is.
Good morning, Dr.
You're
Garbalosa. You are muted.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Ryan Garbalosa, District 10, speaking for myself. I find this resolution very broad, practicing based on religious preferences and conscience. We're here to practice evidence-based medicine. And I just want to remind everyone that this does not have any limitation to what it feels would be an act of conscience or right. If someone doesn't want to transfuse a patient, or if there's a practitioner in rural South Carolina where we mainly practice who is refusing to treat patients based on whatever life choices they make, I feel like we have an obligation to practice evidence-based medicine. And although our conscience should apply to what we do as doctors, I don't feel that it should be just free reign to practice however you feel. And this resolution, I don't believe, is specific enough to encompass that.
Thank you. And a reminder,
I would motion.
if you would.
Oh, sorry. I would motion to reject this resolution.
Okay. So I'm assuming you're speaking against the resolution? Is that
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. And as a reminder to please, when speakers start to make a record or to state if they are for or against the motion at hand. I do not believe that is a new motion since you're simply speaking against the motion.
Right. Well, he made a
motion to reject, which would need to be seconded, I believe.
What?
So as a point of clarification, just a minute, I believe the motion on the floor, you haven't changed or amended. The motion on the floor, you're speaking against it to reject, correct? Which would not need a motion.
Okay,
So
yes.
you were simply speaking to reject the motion that is on the floor.
Okay, next, Dr. Jimmy Wells would like to speak.
Thank you, Dr. Wells. You may have the floor. Thank you, Dr. Garbalosa.
Hello, I'm Jimmy Wells. I'm a medical oncologist in Lexington. I support this resolution as written. In this scenario, this resolution does not prevent people from getting care. What it says is a provider should not be forced to do something and bind their conscience against something they find objectionable based on who they are. In this situation, if a patient comes and you offer one type of care to Mr. Smith, you can't deny Mr. Johns the same type of care, but it does prevent you from being forced to practice against your conscience or something you have chosen not to participate in. We haven't gotten to D10, but this is the exact reason we need something like D10, because those in power at the time tend to force those that are not in power to abide by their personal conscience, not by the conscience of the provider as well. So I'm in favor of this, this resolution as written.
Thank you, Dr. Wells.
Next up is Dr. Richard McCain.
Dr. Richard McCain, I believe it's the author of this resolution. You may have the floor.
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I'm the author of the resolution. which basically states that no medical professional should be forced to violate their oath to do no harm, and that doctors, nurses, and other medical providers should never be forced to participate in procedures or treatments that conflict with their ethical, moral, or religious beliefs. It was never the intent of this resolution to refer to blood transfusions or routine medical care. This resolution allow providers to refuse to provide general care to a patient or to kick a patient out of a practice? No, it does not. This bill simply protects providers who gladly serve everyone in their particular field of medicine from being required to perform a specific medical procedure if doing so would violate their conscience.
Thank you, Dr. McCain.
Next up is Dr. Greg Tarasidis.
Dr. Tarasidis, you may have the floor.
Hello. So,
Yes, sir, Dr. Tarasidis.
I'm just speaking in support of Dr. Wells and Dr. McCain. I think there's been a lot. The opposition seems to be around expanding what it means here. We're not talking about, and they're not talking about, as best I can tell, emergency care and TALA covered care. We're talking about elective care. So you're not leaving a patient in a bind. Appropriate referrals, that type of thing could certainly be made if it's something you're not comfortable doing. And I think that is a reasonable thing. And I speak in support of D9.
Thank you, Dr. Tarasidis.
Next, we have a couple of comments. One is from Willie Jones, DO, who says, speaking on behalf of myself, I echo Dr. Garbelosa's sentiment. Dr. Jones, I don't know if you want to speak live or if we just type that.
Yeah, it's difficult in a virtual setting
Yes.
where we don't have the floor for comments, but
And
I
then,
believe, Dr. Jones, you have been brought up.
Hey, good morning. This is Mark Jones from the Resident Fellow section, speaking on behalf of myself against Resolution D9. I do believe that the topic is far too broad and encompasses way too many things. And, you know, I feel like maybe there could be some more support to this if it was better defined. I do worry that, you know, as physicians, we are here to practice the most unbiased medicine. And that's unfortunately or fortunately getting your patient what they need and deserve. So I do not support this resolution.
and next, Dr. Abella Campion says no need to speak, that she supports this resolution. She says it's more about physician autonomy, which I believe needs to be protected even more nowadays.
Please. Next, Dr. Wilson, may I have the floor?
This is Gerald Wilson from Columbia speaking for myself. I would make a motion that we refer this resolution to the board for decision. The reason for doing that is that it is fairly broad statement to resolve. I think it could better be defined when the board takes a look at it and comes up with maybe better language to it.
Okay, thank you. So the motion on the floor is for it to be referred to board, a higher level motion. First, we would need to have a second. Sorry, just 1 minute. Please, Dr. Wilson, in that motion, is this a motion for the board to make a decision or for the board to make a report back to the House of Delegates?
Well, I put the referred for decision, but I think in fairness, it would be wise to bring it back to the House with better recommendations.
Okay, so would you please restate your motion?
I would move that the resolution be referred to the board for consideration and then bring it back to the House as a recommendation.
Okay, so the motion on the floor, it needs to be seconded.
Dr. Orr has seconded, Dr.
Okay,
Richard.
so Dr. Orr has seconded this motion. So the motion on the floor is for this resolution to be referred to the board for discussion and report back to the House of Delegates. We will, at the following annual meeting in House of Delegates. So 2022 annual meeting in House of Delegates. We will now open, this motion has been seconded. We will now open the discussion to the motion at hand for the referral. Dr. McCain is the first to speak.
And he needs to speak on this.
Correct. Yes, Dr. McCain is the first to speak on this motion of referral.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I certainly respect my associates' feelings and thoughts on referring this to the board. I do think there's a tendency for many professional organizations to drift into the political and ideology sphere. I think our bedrock principle for the SCMA has been science and ethics, doing the right thing. I think we are at a critical time as a professional organization to maintain our bedrock principles of science and ethics. I think that this resolution protects that. The exercise of the right of conscience applies only to conscience-based objections to a particular healthcare service. If you notice that OBGYN field, for example, 20% of respondents said they decided not to pursue a career in certain fields due to lack of tolerance for their moral, ethical, or religious beliefs. And basically, we are now a diverse society in the United States and in South Carolina. And so patients want their physicians to have a similar ideology or similar ethics to their own. And physicians are uncomfortable with procedures that are against their moral and ethical beliefs. In fact, 91% of respondents in a recent Catholic...
Dr. McCain?
Yes.
Dr. McCain, I'm sorry to interrupt. Please, we are speaking to the motion of referral, not for the original motion of acceptance or not.
Right, and therefore I would not refer it to the committee because of its urgency. I would not refer it to the board because of its urgency.
Oh, shit.
Thank you.
All right, now Dr. Tarasidis would like to speak on referral.
Dr. Tarasidis, you may have the floor to discuss on referral to the board.
She's up to speak.
Dr. Tarasidis should be the next one up to speak. And
Please mute. You will have to unmute your phone, but not your computer. Your computer should stay muted. Dr. Moretz, can you hear me? If you just nod your head if you can hear me. Dr. Moretz, we will give you a call.
Okay, thank you. So as for where we stand, it's Dr. Tarasidis should have the floor. I see he is not up yet. So I see Dr. Campion. Dr. Campion, we'll allow you to speak on the referral.
Yeah, I would like for us to not refer. I think it's really important to discuss this as it pertains to patient autonomy. I also think that D9 is similarly related to D10. So I do believe that we need to discuss it and hopefully support this resolution, D9.
Tarasidis, you have the floor.
Who?
Dr. Tarasidis.
Okay, you cut out for a second, so I didn't hear the name. Thank you. I would, Greg Tarasidis from District 7, speaking as individual to speak against referral. I do think that this issue is important. I do think the reference committee got it right in its recommendation to adopt it as amended. We have heard how this is really defined. And so I would speak against referral to the board and to support the recommendation of the reference committee. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
Okay, next, Matthew Brady, delegate for ACR on behalf of himself. No need to speak live. Supports for referral and report back.
Thank you.
Dr. John Evans says he supports referral. Did you want to speak, Dr. Evans?
Dr. Evans, we will have you may have the floor.
Dr. Evans has been promoted, so he should be on.
Okay. Dr. Evans.
Dr. Evans, you would have to unmute to speak.
Dr. John Evans, Greenville delegate. I support Dr. Wilson's motion to refer.
Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Ryan Garbalosa is asking to speak.
Dr. Garbalosa is next. You may have the floor. While we have him coming, Dr. Wells says he does not need to speak again, but he is against referral. And Dr. Snyder says he supports referral and does not need to speak.
Dr. Garbalosa, you're on. You just need to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I also support the referral. I understand the comments that were made about how this may be an important decision and what the actual intent of the report was, but none of that is actually reflected in the resolution. The language is too broad. I support referral.
Thank you.
Now we have Samantha Bookbinder, second-year med student.
Samantha Bookbinder, you have the floor.
She's on, so she should be able to speak.
Okay.
Hi, my name's Samantha Bookbinder. I'm a second-year medical student at MUSC. I would like to I apologize, my computer got rid of my notes. I would like to support bringing this back to the committee. Just to echo the previous document.
Okay, it's working now.
That the author stated that the initial intention of the resolution was something different from what was written, or not as specific as what was written previously when this resolution was discussed. Comments were taken, comments on the resolution were taken and discussed in a different context of the original comment. And so I support bringing this back to the committee for discussion.
I'm sorry, would you restate your stance? You're against referral or for referral? Sorry, I missed it.
I'm for referral back to the board back to the committee for discussion.
Thank you.
Next, Dr. Weitzman would like to speak.
Dr. Weitzman, you may have the floor. While we're working on that, Dr. Kunda says no need to speak. She supports referral.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I have mixed feelings about taking care of this today or not taking care of this today and how we refer it. My main goal is to remind my colleagues of the law of unintended consequences. We are physicians and specialists in that area. When we bring forth something to a group of physicians that has a very strong legal component, I would suggest whichever way we decide to go, be it back to committee, not to committee, done on the floor, that we use the resources of the SCMA, which includes our legal counsel, to help us be very exact and very specific, because these recommendations will be
Dr. Weitzman, I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt. I'm going to let you finish. However, I would like, if you would, state for or against the referral.
Honestly, neither. I just want it put in the right place so that we can get the legal input to have this done appropriately. I don't care if it's here on the floor or it goes back. I'm actually kind of asking our president, how do we get the proper legal input into this specific resolution so that we can word it in a way that's appropriate for our legal colleagues? Is this something we can do on the floor, or is this something that needs to go to a committee?
Well, I believe it sounds like if we would ask the president for questions such as that, that would require a referral. So I believe you're speaking for referral. I don't want to put words in your mouth by any means.
Well, again, like I said, I'm not an expert in this arena, so that's why I'm looking for input from the leadership.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we've had 2 calls for the vote now since we've heard both sides.
Okay, so we have had 2 calls for the vote. And remember, so that can serve as the call and the second. Remember that what we are voting on. So we are going to stop now to take a vote because this has been called. We have heard from both sides, both for and against referral. So we're going to move to vote on the referral. So the motion at hand, the question at hand is the referral to the Board of Trustees for discussion and report back to the House of Delegates in 2022. That is the vote that will come up. The yeas are for referral, bringing it to the board to report back in 2022. The nays are for not bringing it back, not for referral. That is the vote at hand. And we're moving the people who are in queue to speak back to the attendee list so they may vote. You cannot vote when you are a panelist. And yes, we should be voting as soon as the vote can come up. So now the vote is up. So we are voting to refer the resolution to the board for discussion and back at the House of Delegates for next year. Please vote. Okay, the yeas have it. So this resolution will be referred to the Board of Trustees for discussion to have it information brought back to the House of Delegates in 2022. Thank you, Dr. Moretz. I know there was a few technical difficulties, but you may continue with D10. You are currently muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, Mr. Speaker, your reference committee recommends that Resolution D10, criminalization of physicians providing care with an accepted standard of medical practice, be adopted as submitted.
Thank you. So the question on the floor is for Resolution D10.
Dr. Tarasidis would like to speak.
Thank you, Dr. Tarasidis. You may have the floor.
You're on, Dr. Tarasidis.
Yeah, I always got to unmute, because it comes up small screen. D10 and D9 sort of go together. You can't take away right of conscience and not actually have criminalization, because you got to be able to enforce it. So having referred D9, I put in motion to refer D10 as well to the board for further discussion, as the two are interrelated. In support of the referral would be so that those could be combined, and from the same reasonings before, Dr. Weitzman, from a legal perspective, seeing how to put those two potentially together. Because as I noted before, if you don't give a physician the right of conscience, then you have to make him do something. It's got to be criminal. So the two are unfortunately not mutually exclusive. And so they do go together, and I make a motion for referral to the board.
Thank you, Dr. Tarasidis. Are you speaking on behalf of yourself or of your district?
Myself.
Well,
okay, so
and we do
is on the floor for referral, and I believe I do see a second from Dr. Delaney.
And Dr. Wilson and Dr. Weitzman.
Great. So Dr. Delaney, Dr. Wilson, and Dr. Weitzman. So we have seconds on the motion. The motion, I will now speak or restate the motion at hand. Now the question at hand is for referral of D10 to the House of Delegates to report, or to the Board of Trustees to report back to the House of Delegates in 2022. So we are now moving to discussion on the motion at hand, which is the motion to refer to the board. So if you are speaking, please state your name, who you are representing, and whether or not you are for or against the motion of referral, the question at hand.
Samantha Bookbinder would like to speak towards the motion for referral.
Okay. Bookbinder, you may have the floor. While we're working on that, Dr. Campion, speaking on behalf of herself, supports referral. Dr. Brady, support a referral.
Hi, my name is Samantha Bookbinder. I'm a second-year medical student at MUSC. I would like to reject the motion to bring this back to the committee for review. I feel that this resolution is significantly more clear, and the reason the previous resolution needed to be brought back to the board was due to lack of clarity. This resolution talks specifically about standard of medical practice, and currently the South Carolina government has criminalized one thing. And so therefore this resolution would only be in relation to that one thing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Dr. Evans would, speaking in favor of referral.
Dr. Evans, you may have the floor. While we're bringing him up, Dr. Walker supports referral. Dr. Evans, you should have the floor now.
Dr. Evans, Greenville, speaking for myself, support referral.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. McCain.
Dr. McCain, you may have the floor. We see
Yes.
you there.
Yes, good morning. I support referral.
Thank you, sir.
All right, Tim Pierce.
Dr. Pierce, you may have the floor. While we're working on Dr. Pierce, Dr. Yackel says no need to speak. He supports referral, as outlined by Dr. Tarasidis. While Dr. Pierce is coming up, I see Dr. Weitzman with a motion for a special session, which would be out of order. So we're going to continue to discuss the motion at hand. Dr. Pierce, I believe you are still muted.
Dr. Pierce, please unmute. I do believe Dr. Pierce might be having some problems unmuting. We've sent several requests to unmute.
Okay, we have a motion to call for the question. We need a second on that. That's from Matthew Brady. Octavia Michi.
Not support referral.
No need to have the floor. She does not support referral.
Dr. Jones has seconded. So therefore, we have a motion and a second to call the question. So we're going to move to call the question, a vote on the referral. So to restate this motion, the motion on the floor, the question at hand, is referral to the board for discussion and to report back to the House of Delegates in 2022. So that is the motion that will be at hand, or the vote that will be at hand. Okay, the vote is up to refer D10 to the Board of Trustees for discussion and report back to the House of Delegates in 2022. Okay. With results, the yeas have it. So D10 will be referred to the Board of Trustees for discussion and report back to the House of Delegates in 2022. Dr. Moretz, I will move back to you for D11.
Okay, Mr. Speaker, your reference committee recommends the resolution D11, support for paid parental leave policies for private and public employees in South Carolina, be adopted as amended to read, resolve that our South Carolina Medical Association supports paid parental leave for public South Carolina employees. Mr. Speaker, reference committee recommends the resolution be adopted as amended.
Thank you. So the question on the floor is for resolution D11 to be adopted as amended. We'll open to any discussion. Seeing none, we will move to vote on Resolution D11 to adopt as amended. And Resolution D11 has been adopted as amended. Dr. Moret, you may proceed.
Mr. Speaker, with regards to Resolution D12, supporting in-state tuition and professional licenses for students with deferred action for childhood arrivals or DACA status, the reference committee has separate recommendations as to the separate resolve clauses. Mr. Speaker, your reference committee recommends the first resolve clause be rejected, and that is because we felt the SCMA does not have a role in deciding tuition for higher education institutions.
Thank you. So the motion on the floor is for the first resolved clause of D12. The reference committee recommends that this be rejected. Any discussion on the first clause of D12? And thank you for the information.
I don't see any.
Seeing none, we'll open the vote for the first clause of Resolution D12. Again, a yea vote is to reject first clause. Again, so with the vote, the first clause of D12 has been rejected. Dr. Moretz, you may proceed.
Mr. Speaker, reference committee recommends that the second resolve clause be referred to the SCMA Board of Trustees for report back to the House of Delegates in 2022.
Thank you. So the question at hand is for Resolution D12, the second clause, to be reported back or be referred to the SCMA Board of Trustees for report back to the House of Delegates in 2022. Are there any discussions on the second clause of Resolution D12? Seeing none, we will move to vote on the second clause for Resolution D12. And the yeas have it, so the Resolution D12, the second clause, will be referred to the Board of Trustees. I appreciate everyone giving us a nice agenda for the coming year. Dr. Moretz, I will return to you.
Mr. Speaker, your reference committee recommends adoption of this reference committee report in its entirety.
Thank you. So the question at hand will be adoption of the reference committee report in its entirety.
No discussion?
Seeing no discussion, we may vote. Thank you. Great, and that passes. Dr. Moretz, I know you had a very active group. I will allow you the floor.
So yes, I wanted to thank my excellent committee, Dr. Abella Campion, who is my very excellent assistant, Dr. Dorn Smith, Dr. Ryan Garbalosa, and I had some exceptional medical students, Jacob Vining and Bryce Deschamplain, who were extraordinary. And then my trustees, I really appreciate their help, which was Drs. Ropp and Yakel and Davis. And then I appreciate Dr. Teresitas for his procedural guidance, as mentioned. And it was a very compatible committee, so I appreciate everybody who attended and participated. Good job.
Thank you, and thank you, Dr. Moretz.
Thank you, guys.
So, prior to bringing the floor or giving it back to Dr. Stockinger, Speaker of the House, I would like to make one announcement. The raffle winners will be posted on the SCMA annual meeting website later this afternoon. There will be 4 winners. I know everyone is waiting anxiously for that. We've got to make sure we stuff the ballots for Cashman first, so we have to wait till the afternoon. As well, I would like to take a moment to thank our Speaker of the House, Dr. Stockinger, for her tremendous work and hard work, as well as the SCMA staff and our parliamentarian, Dr. Stephanie Putnam, Rochelle Taylor, Rebecca Brannon, Natalie Sally, and Michelle Boland to help work through these resolutions. We did not want to wait another year in order to complete this resolution process. So I appreciate that, as well as the work of ASG. And with that, I will turn it back over to Dr. Stockinger.
Thank you very much for that. I did want to say everybody take a big sigh of relief, and thank you for getting through that so smoothly. I thought that was really an excellent morning we had. And I did want to say we really enjoyed having the students on reference committee this year. This was the first time they were able to join us, and then they've played a key role. So I hope those of you who are interested in perhaps serving on a reference committee enjoyed what you saw. Next year, please let your, I guess, medical society and district know if you are interested in serving on a reference committee. It helps us. We start looking for people to serve as early as March. So keep that in mind if you're interested. We'd love to give you some experience. Okay, now, we're not done yet. Usually we end now, but we have a special treat for you. I'm going to introduce Dr. Mike Finch to give his farewell address from the President, and don't leave after that. We're not done. Stay tuned. Welcome, Dr. Finch. You are muted.
Okay. How about everything okay now?
Yes.
Right. Well, Madam Speaker, Dr. Vice Speaker, trustees and board members and delegates and guests and SCMA staff. I will keep this fairly brief because I know we're getting late into the morning, and I gave a pretty full report on Friday. But I just want to say that it's been my pleasure to serve this past year. It's obviously been a unprecedented year, a year that was different than what I expected, but also was a year that I felt like our society and for me personally was very rewarding because of what we were able to do on the front lines for the COVID fight. So I will look back on it very fondly and feel that we had a very upfront presence at the State House and on the news media, and were able to show the importance of what the SCMA does in a very big way, obviously in a crisis situation that has been, unprecedented in our lifetime. So I think it underscored the importance of what we do here and what we are doing here. I want to, of course, thank my family for their support, my partners for their support for my time out of the office. There have been 158 presidents before me at the SCMA, and the last 8 to 10 of those have had a very direct influence on my term and my preparation to be president. These doctors have set great examples, and I've learned a tremendous amount from observing the last 8 or 10 presidents while I've been on the board. The SCMA is starting its 174th year as an organization. The last 5 years have been pretty challenging for us as board members and executive committee members. There have been a lot of issues that have had to be addressed and tackled, a lot of them requiring many, many hours of meetings, conferencing, discussion, very important decision making to try to set the course for the SCMA to move forward and to be financially sound and to set up new leadership for the years to come. I think we've accomplished that. I think that we've all learned a great deal, and I think it's been rewarding to be able to work with such an outstanding staff at the SCMA. I continue to just be impressed and amazed at the commitment that these individuals have to our organization. And I wanted to make sure that I thanked a few of them directly, but of course, I can't thank every single staff member, but, especially to Rochelle Taylor and Michelle Bolin, Brian Morris, Rebecca Brannon, Natalie Sally, Nicole Stinson, Ben Homeyer, Joni Nickel, and all the other SCMA staff that help make this meeting possible. These folks do a tremendous job for us as the volunteer physicians that are, give our time to support the society. And these folks are always there for us and just do a tremendous job. So I would, offer up a huge thanks to them and what they did for me this past year to help assist me in my time as president. I'm very encouraged by the involvement of the young members that are at this meeting and that are on the various committees for the medical students, the residents, and the fellows. I just think it's outstanding that they are jumping into organized medicine early. I think, that's will only serve them well and serve us well in the future. I look forward to getting together with our President-elect, John Ropp, his family, my family, and the board members at the Governor's Mansion on June 2nd to have sort of a coming and going celebration for John and I, since we've had a not met in person this last year, and then this year it's done virtually. I think the meeting's gone very, very well. I want to thank ASG for all their hard work. Also thank, of course, the SCMA staff and the speaker and vice speaker for all of their time, and the leaders of the reference committees as well. I look forward to presenting the President's Award on June 2nd to my mentor and pediatrician, Nelson Weston, who was the president of the SCMA back in the late 90s rather. I've spoken with him, and he has agreed to be there and is honored, and I will be honored to present this award to him. This would normally be presented now at the live meeting, so I will look forward to doing that with him at that time. And lastly, I just would like to congratulate John Ropp, who will be our 160th president. I will leave the organization in excellent hands. We all know John well. We all know his commitment and his time on the board, and I know that he's going to do an outstanding job for us. So thank you so much for this experience in this past year. It's been wonderful, and I will close with that. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you so much, Dr. Finch. Ordinarily, we would all stand up and clap and do all those things, and just know it's in our hearts. And again, thank you for your fantastic year that you served. And look forward to June 2nd. Okay, don't leave yet. Next, I'm calling on Dr. Mays DeBose to make a special presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Stockinger. Real quickly, I just want to thank Dr. Finch for his service this year. It's been beyond an atypical year for an SCMA president, and he's done a wonderful job. And I also would like to echo his comments thanking the SCMA staff. They're amazing. We get to see them working up close and personal, and this organization would not be what it is without all of their efforts. And I think this conference has gone amazingly well. But at this time, I'd like to call on Dr. John C. Ropp III. Now, I've known him since our childhood back in Sumter, but currently he's a family physician from Hartsville and former chair of the South Carolina Medical Association. And I'd like to call on him to recite the oath of the president of the South Carolina Medical Association. Dr. Rock, I do solemnly swear, repeat after me, please. I do solemnly swear that I shall carry out the duties of the president of the South Carolina Medical Association to the best of my ability.
I do solemnly swear that I shall carry out the duties of the president of the South Carolina Medical Association to the best of my ability.
I shall strive to promote the highest ethical standards for the medical profession.
I shall strive to promote the highest ethical standards for the medical profession.
I shall work to improve the education and training of physicians in our state.
I shall work to improve the education and training of physicians in our state.
I shall support the freedom of medical practice for all physicians.
I shall support the freedom of medical practice for all physicians.
I shall dedicate my office to maintaining and improving quality health care and the health of all South Carolinians.
I shall dedicate my office to maintaining and improving quality health care and the health of all South Carolinians.
I shall uphold the Constitution and bylaws of the South Carolina Medical Association at all times.
I shall uphold the Constitution and bylaws of the South Carolina Medical Association at all times.
To these duties and obligations, I pledge myself, so help me God.
To these duties and obligations, I pledge myself, so help me God.
Congratulations, Dr. Ropp.
Thanks, Dr. DeBose. Dr. Finch, Madam Speaker, and Mr. Vice Speaker, past presidents of the South Carolina Medical Association, House of Delegates, Dr. DeBose, Board of Trustees, and SCMA staff, thank you. I'm humbled and thankful for the opportunity to serve this association as its 160th president. The SMA has a long and distinguished history, and it's up to each one of us to preserve its integrity and ability to continue being the voice of healthcare in South Carolina. There is no doubt that this past year has been extraordinary, and I want to again thank Dr. Finch for his steady, calm leadership during a particularly challenging year as president. Thank you, Mike. My remarks today will be brief. I know we are all looking forward to the end of another annual meeting, especially the staff. I look forward to sharing more in my inauguration speech at a ceremony later in June. However, I want to first thank all of you for making this weekend and annual meeting a reminder of our resilience as physicians and how we can serve as examples to our profession and patients of coming together in our meetings, educational sessions, chat rooms, board rooms, messaging places, reference committees, and of course, this House of Delegates for the common good. You are all inspiring. In particular, Speaker Stockinger and Vice Speaker Cashman, as well as all of our SMA staff, are to be congratulated on a wonderful meeting. Personally, I look forward to getting out more this year and visiting the state as president. So please let me and the Medical Association staff know how I can help you in your medical societies, your sections, your educational institutions, your practices, and other health organizations. I welcome all of your invitations. Some of my priorities this year will be advanced care planning, the freedom of medical practice, and a renewed SCMA that is ready to lead as the voice of healthcare for all South Carolinians. I look forward to sharing these with you. As we move to adjournment, please remember to remain involved with your local societies and other SCMA committees that will help move our actions this weekend into reality. Encourage other colleagues to get involved as well. Remember also that next year's annual meeting is in Spartanburg, so please make plans to attend the meeting in person. Finally, for all Board of Trustees, both old and new, we will meet virtually for the reorganization meeting occurring 15 minutes after this adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Thank you, Dr. Ropp. Yes, there's going to be a motion and a second. Before we leave, I want to say I'm really humbled by all the words of encouragement and congratulations that I have received for this year's meeting. hopefully this will be the last virtual meeting we ever have to have. And I definitely appreciate Dr. Cashman being here in his first rodeo. I thought he did an amazing job. And, I reiterate, thank you to the staff. I know they're exhausted, and I'm exhausted for them. Okay, we do have a motion from Dr. Rupp. Would you like to second the adjournment motion?
I would, Dr. Osmond, as well, I believe.
Okay, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Woo!